First thing, I misspoke in my last video. I don't know where I got that number from. I said that, 556 or 223, the average velocity is 2,300 feet per second. I think the number I had in my head, I think it's anything over 2,000 feet per second is going to go through level 2 body armor, right? Which is typically what most law enforcement officers wear, coming out of let's say a 16-inch rifle. But your average 5.56 or 2.23, and I didn't know 2.23 was actually faster than 5.56. At least that's what Wikipedia says. But you're closer to 3,000 feet per second. So more like, 2,700, 2,800 to 3,000 feet per second. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about, 5.56 or 2.23. 223 is just typically it's more of a commercial round. 5.56 is what NATO allies shoot with the M4 carbine, M16 carbine, which are basically the fully automatic versions of a M4. So this shooter used an XM15, which is a Bushmaster. So Bushmaster, they're going to try to, sue Bushmaster again, despite the laws of PLACA. All right, you see all this stuff about being able to sue gun manufacturers, which even the Department of Justice, I think they put out a statement years ago, basically saying like this is the whole reason why they put PLACA in place in the first place, because the gun industry in America are private. They're private companies. They're private industries. And the government doesn't manufacture its own weapons. So if the gun companies were magically sued out of existence, then the government wouldn't be able to get their shit. The military wouldn't be able to get their shit, right? All the R&D and the research and all that stuff, right? There's not enough of a market there. The government would have to basically buy it all up, or give these companies a guaranteed amount, which again, additionally, when you only have one company manufacturing the weapons, it would be kind of like Russia, where like everything's an AK and everything's a variant of an AK. There's not really a whole bunch of competitive capitalism going on. And so all the different various companies, like when they just did this recent, replacing the what is it, the Army's rifle. I think it's like what's like the MCX Spear or something like that. It's like the bigger version of like the MCX. Anyway, right? They had several people come out. They do the competition, and the Army and the military decides for the price, what is the best, firearm that they want to switch to. Same thing that they did with the SIG, P320, which is now, I believe it's called the M17. I don't know. That's it's just their designation. M16, M17, M4. Right? It's just the designations that they give. But anyway, it's not what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get the facts straight, because I was like, why did I say 2,300 feet per second? I hadn't looked in a while, so I just looked it up, and I was like, yeah, it's closer to 3,000 feet per second. So anyway, I watched the video of like I actually saw it this morning before I uploaded my video, and I said, maybe I'll make a commentary on it later. But I had already seen like a really short snippet, and I saw that first white woman. I'm assuming she's a white woman because she definitely wasn't black. The first woman, when he hopped out the car, I mean, she didn't even know what hit her. I mean, she got straight smoked. And then you had those other two people that were, up against the wall. One of them was a white woman. He smoked her, shot her up. I mean, hit her with a headshot. As she was dying on the ground, hit the other dude. I think the guy was black. There was another black guy that was standing next to her. And then there was also somebody behind the car who I believe was putting groceries in the car. They got hit too. So that's 4 people outside dead. Then he shot through the glass as he was walking in the supermarket. And this is for the people who haven't seen the video and probably don't want to see the video. And I'm going to get into that in a second about people who can't stomach the video. Okay? Shot through the glass. Might have hit somebody, because as soon as he walks in, and you know how most supermarkets are set up, right? when you walk in the supermarket, I know that like in the Northeast, we got like what do we have like I can't even think. But anyway, you walk into a supermarket, and usually the produce is the first thing that you run into, and then on the right, there's the bakery, or like kind of like that whole like to the right area as you walk in the supermarket. That's where all the produce and the bakery and the deli and all that stuff is on the right hand side. I've walked into so many supermarkets and I didn't realize it until I saw this video. I was like, they're all kind of set up the same. So anyway, he walks in, after he gunned down the 4 people in the front, and there was a black woman who was laying on the ground. I guess she was crawling or stumbling, I don't know. And he just basically put like 4 or 5 shots in her ass and side, and then she stopped moving. And then there was another older black woman who was laying prone in the aisle. I'm guessing that they got hit. That's who he was shooting at through the glass. And so when he went in there, he went to finish him off. And the elderly black woman who was in the aisle, and she was just laying there, and he literally reloaded his gun and just popped her just in the head, in the face, whatever you want to call it. He just stood over her and popped her in the face. Then he went around the corner, and it was like, look, I don't know, the guy had dark hair. He looked to be Hispanic. He was on the left-hand side in front of the cash registers, and he shoots him, so he gets smoked. And then there was a white cashier. And everybody's interviewing this black guy that was outside and said he talked to the guy the day earlier because the guy was scoping out the territory and everything else. But there was a white guy that was in the cash register, and he was on the ground. I have this sense that he was gay. Not that matters, but I just have this like sense because he was like groveling and I'm just kind of like, why the fuck didn't you get out of there? All them shots, and you're just still behind the cash register. You know what I mean? And then the shooter goes, sorry, right? Because he, basically he wasn't trying to kill any white men. Because I'm like, you already smoked 2 white women. So the white feminists will probably come out and scream misogyny or whatever. But I'm like, did this guy like not get the memo on like white supremacy? I'm like, if you're advocating for white supremacy and talking about the great replacement and all that other stuff, you're going to need some white women. The shit doesn't even make sense. But anyway, do we expect it to make sense? No, because this is radical ideology. It's just something that, black people need to be vigilant and they need to be aware of it. But, I saw some brothers trying to, there's like 1 or 2 posts, and they're trying to, first off, the black people just need to stop with the stupid shit. You got people wanting to, talk about the, where's Chrissy? Where's Cynthia G? And what about the swirlers and everything else like that? Like I said, if you hadn't seen the video, you don't even know who he shot. Even obviously it was a predominantly black supermarket, but you obviously you had white employees there. He smoked them. So white women got killed also. So trying to like connect it, and I hate when black people do this on either side of the gender. A black person gets killed by somebody white, and depending on the genders, it all turns into haha, nana nana boo boo. Black men, this white woman killed you, or black woman, this white man killed you. That's just a stupid argument. And it really shows you how unfocused we are as a people, and how much the gender war has just taken over everything. Additionally, what else was there? What else was there about the other stupid thing I see people doing? I see people like Black Authority bringing up Kyle Rittenhouse, and I'm like, this shit don't have nothing to do with no goddamn Kyle Rittenhouse. But he's gonna make it about, it's Kyle Rittenhouse. Yes, there are white men that have this sense of the left versus the right, and the rioters and the looters and all this other shit. No, this is on some higher level shit. This is on that, again, the same shit that guy was doing in freaking New Zealand, the great replacement. This is that, that red ice talk. This is that, Richard Spencer talk. That's what it is. And the thing is like, I don't even know why everybody's even focused on the 18-year-olds and as somebody said, the 4chan crash dummies. I don't even know why anybody's even focused on them, because that's not the source. The source would obviously be where these people are getting, their inspiration on the internet. Just like that guy, that they did, Vice did an interview of, that's a part of Adam Waffen, and he was basically encouraged in the same things. But when they asked him about it, obviously he wasn't going to incriminate himself as a white supremacist. He just kind of smiled, like basically, well, if they do something, I don't, I don't condemn them, right? So he didn't want to get caught up, co-signing, the idea of somebody going off and committing acts like this. But basically, he encouraged it without encouraging it. I don't condemn them, right? Go pull that up, because this stuff has been out. Like these white supremacist groups and their whole fear of white genetic annihilation. This has been a thing for a while. And especially with the white people's low birth rates, because that's everybody else's problem, because white men ain't fucking white women. But this also really dives into, if I don't want to be a smart ass about it, this really dives into how or what Amos Wilson said about men being unemployed and underemployed will cannibalize the community, and that pretty much goes for all races. Black people, if you have boys that are unemployed and underemployed, in the black community, they'll join gangs and they'll terrorize the community. In the white community, they'll join white supremacist groups, right? Because that's their identity that they will revolve around. They'll blame the immigrants. The same shit you see in Europe, with what's that shit called? The Azar Battalion or whatever it is in Ukraine. All the stuff all the racial shit that was going on in Poland, the right wingers, they're more focused on Muslims because there's more Muslims there than there are Africans. But that's what their primary focus on. But they don't like any immigrants. That whole Europe is for Europeans and all that stuff, right? Even though they'll say Europe is for Europeans, but you start talking about some white South Africans getting the fuck out of South Africa, and they got a whole bunch of, this is my country, we were born here. So I'm like, nah, keep the same energy, fan. If Europe is for Europeans, then Africa needs to be for Africans, and the Afrikaners and the Boers need to get the fuck out. But anyway, let's keep it consistent. You get the Muslims that don't have economic opportunities. Where do they turn to? They turn to terrorism, and they even go in and start blowing up mosques and stuff like that. Just pick a group. Mexicans, no economic opportunities for young Mexican men, they'll join the cartel. So this kind of ties into not the gender war specifically, but a bit of it, in terms of the importance of, making sure that men can, be productive in society and have a positive male identity, as opposed to, all this shit that we've seen over the last couple of years that have affected both groups, in terms of the, extreme feminism, everything about men and manhood is toxic. And then, they'll be ranting about this and talking about how toxic it is. And mark my words, there'll be some white women that'll jump up and focus narrowly on, he killed 2 white women, it's because he hated women, and, whatever other shit. Okay. That'll be what they'll try to morph the argument into that, as well. Um, but, that's where I saw the video cut off. I don't know if there's anything else to the video, because that's 4 outside. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4. No, that's 1, 2, 3. So there's like 3 other people he must have killed. I didn't see any where this security guard was, or where he had an exchange with the security guard. Again, I'm seeing snippets and people editing the video and people trying to capture the video before it gets taken down. And if other people edit the video, then you don't get all of the video. But I've seen enough. You know what I mean? When he hopped out that car, he just got to straight dumping when it came to the people that were outside. And that shit, that's got me thinking, just how I'm like, damn, I need to carry a second magazine. You know what I mean? Because I was like, that's a lot of firepower, plain and simple. It's a lot of firepower. I'm like, damn, that's what you're gonna be dealing with. If some shit were to pop off, which leads me to another point about black people in self-defense. I am so sick of black people in this shit. I see this crap. They got the video of the Democrats and what is this documentary called that NBC put up here, the Black Church and the Democratic Party, right? Talking about how the growing number of young black youth are atheists. I've been saying that a lot more young black, but or if not atheists, agnostic, non-denominational, a-religious, whatever you want to call it, walking away from the shit. So the Democrats, they're freaking out. But again, I think the focus now for the younger generation, this is why the older generation they need to prematurely sit this shit the fuck out. Okay. Because even with the supermarket situation, they'll be the first ones. And I saw another clip and they were talking about, because Buffalo has its issues. Buffalo has a lot of crime, violence. It's typically black on black. They got issues with the police. There's a lot of racism that goes on. I saw the people that were bitching about the fact that how's he walk out with handcuffs, and if that was one of us, we would be gunned down by the police, right? They would shoot us quick, fast, in a hurry. So they've had, their issues. But I'm saying, it's like you got these black people, even within their own community, high crime area, right? Because no economic opportunities. And like I said, the young men they'll cannibalize the community. They'll resort to selling drugs. They'll resort to the narco economy and all these sorts of things, criminal activity, right? Because there's no economic opportunities for them. And so it's like, as the elders, it's like you got to protect yourself not only from those in your community or even other folks in the community, other families in the community. You got to protect yourselves from the rogue males. We can sit there, we can boo-hoo and feel sad for them and say, oh, it's because, they didn't have a mother or a father, or dad was, abusive, or he was in jail or absent, or mom was on drugs and everything else. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to raise a family, your family comes first. That's all I'm saying. If you got to put a young man in the dirt, so be it. It's just a reality. You got to protect yours. You can't get be Jesus with it, that you're not, prioritizing your own family. Okay. I'm just saying, understanding the underlying circumstances that brought that young man to where he is terrorizing the community. In the moment, I may not be compassionate, if I got to protect my family or protect myself, but I do have that level of compassion where I'm like, I do recognize that it's the entirety of the system that created this situation, right? The redlining, the blockbusting, the Jim Crow, the urban renewal, the eminent domain, the convict leasing, the debt peonage, all this shit that white America owes black people reparations for. You know what I'm saying? And notice I said white America. Notice it's always white supremacy is quick to identify itself when it wants to be white supremacy. But any other circumstances, they want you to talk about white supremacy like it's some vague shit like the government or some shit like that. Like, and who controls the government? What does the government consist of? You know what I'm saying? It consists of white men in positions of power, point blank, period. But they always want to play semantics with you when it comes to that. But it's like I just don't get these older black people when it comes to the Second Amendment. You're in New York. Really? You need more gun control? Really? You know what I'm saying? I mean, aside from the fact that, this is the argument about, oh, we need it at a federal level, because again, Binghamton or whatever it's called, it borders Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has lax gun laws. And to get a long gun, a rifle, again, handguns are restricted through interstate commerce. Rifles are not, and people are sitting there talking about, oh, well, he's not 20. You got to be 21 to buy a gun. No, you do not. First off, in California, the 21 thing was deemed unconstitutional, so most likely it'll be unconstitutional across the board when it goes up to the Supreme Court, and that's just going to be a fact. Okay, I don't know what Democrats thought they were doing with this whole 20. You need to be 21 to possess a firearm. That's bullshit. Okay, you can send them off to war to go fight in Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff, but you're going to say that they can't. They're not responsible enough to possess a firearm because of mass shootings in high schools, and you have seniors that are 18 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to work. They're old enough. They're old enough to vote. They're old enough to buy cigarettes. Not old enough to buy alcohol. So why isn't it the same thing, right? So people will make that argument, but I'm like, hey, they're old enough for you to give them the same tool to go to some foreign land to go fight, your political wars or your resource wars or whatever, but they're not old enough to possess, as an adult. That's going to be a problem, and the legal challenges will be made. But again, it now I don't know about buying across state lines in terms of, because some gun stores, they'll know people come across the state lines and they don't want to deal with the bullshit. So they'll be like, oh, you got a New York license? No, I can't sell you this because you're not a Pennsylvania resident, and you're not going to take it out. And chances are you're going to take it back to New York. So I'm not going to sell it to you. But other places, they don't give a shit. They're like, you can purchase it. It's perfectly legal for you to purchase in the state of Pennsylvania. You can purchase any long gun that you want. Whether you take it back across state lines into New York, that's your prerogative. That's not on me. You know what I mean? But, DAs and shit like that, they'll try to, they'll go back and forth and try to frustrate and try to threaten legal action and all that type of stuff. But, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. But at 18, you are able to possess a long gun. So some of you all are writing comments and you don't know the laws. Okay. Handguns, you have to be 21 to get a handgun. And I guess that all revolves around the idea that handguns are concealable. Handguns are the weapon of choice for criminals, right? So, nobody's really getting run up on, with long guns. The other thing is like, he didn't choose the XM15 Bushmaster because it was the most effective killing tool in terms of killing these people. Any gun would be effective, but I would argue that, or I would agree that an XM15 or any sort of semi-automatic rifle is extremely effective. But that's not why he used it. He used it because of the conversation that revolves around gun control. And that was the same reason that guy, the shooter in New Zealand, used the AR-15 in his massacre. It was in his manifesto. Same reason. Oh, there's a whole. I mean, he even brought up America and gun control in America, and then again, because people will sit there and say, you see people make these videos. I'm not going to say his name. We're not going to acknowledge him, and that's the problem because the media gives them all type of attention, and we need to stop making these people infamous. Correct. We need to stop making them infamous. But think about it. If you're a mass shooter, right, and you're trying to get attention, right, and the liberals, they won't shut the fuck up about gun control and we got to get these weapons of war and weapons of destruction off of the streets. Then what weapon are you going to use? The most controversial one, the one that's being actively debated, right? Because if in order to discuss your act of violence, in order to discuss the what weapon you use, they have to discuss your act of violence and who you are and what you did. It's like a package deal. And so that was the goal and the priority of that, to gain notoriety, attention, awareness, to the cause. Okay? Trying to encourage others to go out here and do the same thing. What else? What else is on my mind about this? But anyway, getting back to the people in the supermarket, like these older black people, like what I don't get, right? Because I'm saying like that the two black women that got gunned down, they didn't look like they were, they look, middle-aged to older. And I see this all the time in healthcare. I see black people that they can't walk. They can barely get around. And I'm like, the reality is if your ass is old and decrepit and you got bad knees and everything else like that, you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to defend yourself. So when you go out here and you vote for these democratic laws, it'll have you standing out there with nothing but your ass. I'm looking at you like you're crazy. You can't protect yourself from the criminals in your community. And you're damn sure not going to be able to protect yourself from a white supremacist. Now, I've had conversations with Captain Solo about this, about, everybody's not a fighter. Everybody's not willing to fight. Now, I would imagine that most people would, if your life was in danger and somebody was about to kill you and I put a gun on the table, I would like to think that you would pick that gun up and you would stop the threat. But talking to Cap and talking about people with firearms, and it's just people, they're just people out here that just don't like guns. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way that it is. Cap's mother, for example, doesn't like guns. My mother doesn't like guns. My father's kind of indifferent to them. But even my father, he's got bad knees. And he was saying that. I remember there was a couple of years ago, there was like a mass shooting in a mall or something like that. And he was like, I'd be dead. He was like, because he's like, I can't run. He's like, what am I going to do? I said, I cannot run. You know what I mean? I'll be hobbling my ass over here. It's like, it's just like, it's like realizing before you're dead that you're dead. You know what I mean? Like if he comes over here, if he finds me, I'm done. So I just don't understand the whole attitude of just being out there with nothing but your ass. And that's this saying. That's the expression. It actually comes from Captain Solo's grandfather. And Cap, I don't know. It was just something I picked up from him. And I love. It really embodies what lacking really is. Yeah, you out there with nothing but your ass. You ain't got nothing to fight back with. You know what I'm saying? Nothing but your ass. I just picture, just this black person just literally butt ass naked, just brown skin, just standing there, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that like literally you out there with nothing but your ass. And again, black people, it's like I don't understand the complacency. I just don't understand the complacency. Whether it's the ops, whether it's freaking. I was listening to some Sleepy Hollow track today, and I was working out in the gym, and the track was like, yeah, if you got those ops, if you got those ops, you can't get caught lacking or something like that. And I was like, you know what, that's a good point. That's a good point. You know what I mean? I'll try to find the clip. But yeah, I was listening to the song. It's right at the end of the song. I'm sitting there listening to it. It's like, yeah, if you got ops, you can't be out here lacking. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And it's funny how a lot of that street shit, it translates over in terms of they're vigilant all the time. Why? Because they got ops, they got enemies, they got, the rival gang members and shit like that. They talk about damn near every drill song is about the ops. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to like regular black people that ain't in the street and ain't in the gang, y'all out here in America, acting like you ain't got no ops. You act like there's people that don't want you gone or don't want you dead. You see what I'm saying? And the thing with the whole white supremacy thing, look, the economy is not good, right? I don't care what the Democrats say. You got gas at $4, $5 a gallon, whatever the fuck it is now. God forbid you have a vehicle that takes premium. You know what I'm saying? Like, then you have the whole housing bubble, excuse me, not bubble yet, but there's going to be a bubble. But you got this whole, this housing issue. You got people getting evicted and all that shit. People who've been out of work, their whole life economically was disrupted for the past 2 years. You got people already angry and frustrated and whatnot. And I really do feel bad for the young people because like they're trying to get their life started and they can't. It's actually worse for my generation because we had the financial crisis back in 2009, and then we got this, so we got hit with a double whammy. You know what I mean? So again, I asked people before people bitching about the pandemic, and people are treating crime that's going on right now like it's just like it's regular crime. I'm like, this shit is not regular. This shit is extra, and it's extra because of all these influences, whether it's the pandemic, the economy, The freaking George Floyd situation that happened, 2 summers ago or whatever. All that shit that's going on. It's all of it. It's a pressure cooker. You know what I mean? A lot of feelings and emotions running around. You know what I'm saying? And I don't understand people that they're not conscious of that. I'm like, I keep this shit on me all the fucking time. All the time. Why? Because I know that motherfuckers out here are in their goddamn feelings. You know what I'm saying? I know that they're in their feelings. So, it is what it is. I ain't out here trying to get caught lacking. But anyway, I'm saying, what I don't understand is, like I said, older people, you can't run. So what you gonna do? And the other thing is, let me speak on this right quick. The damn security guards. I don't want to, begrudge this brother or whoever it was. I don't know if it was a brother, but I don't know if it was the black guy that was a security guard. I don't know. All I know, they said the security guard got killed. And so I don't even know his race. So I shouldn't say that it was a brother, but I kind of have a sense that it is because it's in a black community or whatever. But here's the thing. It's like, I'm so tired of y'all out here with nothing but these pea shooters. Anytime black people talk about they want to defend or protect something because, some racist shit happens, we're going to get security. And y'all get Otis the security guard. Stop getting Otis, okay? Some of these security guards, nigga, you too damn old. You too damn old. You too damn old to be a security guard. You too damn old to be out there, okay? I used to be a bouncer. I'm too damn old to be a bouncer. Plain and simple. I understand for a lot of people it's an easy gig. You sit there, you chill, you chat it up. You thinking that nothing's going to happen. If a person runs up on you with an AR or multiple people run up on you with pistols, you are going to be outgunned. Okay? Anybody doing security needs to be open carrying a rifle. I don't care what you say. That's just how I feel about it. People just going, oh, they're shocked because you got to write. People just going to have to deal with it. You're just going to have to deal with it. Okay? Get you a lone security guard. Y'all see what happened to that security guard in Georgia that got shot in the back of the head? You know what I mean? And they rummaged through his pockets and shit like that. All that, again, needs to be two of you all, and both of you need to have rifles. That's just my thing. The way people think about security in the black and the community is just a fucking joke. You know what I mean? You get these overweight security guards. You know what I mean? These overweight bouncers, the big marshmallow. Y'all think y'all see a big body and that motherfucker's capable. He is not capable. Shit, if I was the president, I want Jet Li to be my goddamn security guard. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's who I want to be my security guard. You know what I'm saying? I want somebody with some John Wick skills, somebody who's mobile and capable. Black people love them, the freaking, used to be the biggest football player in high school security guard. Y'all love that nigga, man. Y'all love him. You know what I'm saying? And he is just as incapable as it gets. And, yeah, he could push people through a crowd, but, I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that that's what this retired cop was, but I'm just saying, obviously one prepared like that. I highly doubt that he had on, a plate carrier or any of that. Maybe he did. I don't know. But again, cats got rifles out here. They ain't bullshitting, and you got to be able to up the ante. This stuff out here, and I'm not saying the security guard had that, but retired cops and shit like that. A lot of them are out here with these wheel guns and shit like that. I got 6 shots of 357. Stop all that. I've seen enough of it. The black security guards, y'all need to stop with this Otis the security guard bullshit. If you really want black people to be protected, you need to have some young, athletic men who are properly trained and physically fit to handle some business, and you need to pay them well to do their job well. Okay? Getting Otis I'm so sick of Otis the security guard. I don't know what to do. Big old pop bellies and everything else, and I'm sitting there like, this is your protection? This nigga right here. This is your protection? Oh, okay. Okay. What else? What else is kind of like just getting to me about the whole thing. Let me think. I remember what I wanted to say. And this was really like the one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video. Watching the video, I have talked to a number of people who not only did not watch the video, but didn't want to watch the video. And I said, why don't you want to watch the video? And they gave me all these various different reasons. And here's my issue with that. Okay. I watch videos like that. I watched the Church Christ shooting in New Zealand. And I also watched this video. Okay. And then why do I watch it? Why do I want to see people's brains splattered across the room? Why do I want to see people getting gunned down and everything? Why do I force myself to watch it? Because I need to know what that type of evil is capable of. I need to know what that type of evil is capable of. And I need to look that evil in the face, right? If I'm telling black people that you got to arm yourself and you have to, or you should be vigilant and you should defend yourself, right? If I'm telling you that, you need to understand and you need to comprehend that what you're going up against. It is not a time for compassion. It is not time for feel goodery and fluffy Care Bears and, having the sweet twinkle of Jesus. No, you need to put a motherfucker down. Okay? Plain and simple. You need to know and understand what that firearm does and what it's capable of. It's not a pretty picture. And so, get people that say that they don't want to, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. Well, then you ain't prepared to exercise your Second Amendment rights to defend you. Because I don't want to hear anything about somebody that wants to, carry a firearm on their person to protect themselves, but then you don't want to watch the video because, it's too graphic. I'm like, what do you think you're going to do when you got to pull that gun out and actually watch those rounds hit actual flesh? I mean, you see this even with cops. You see these cops that they shoot somebody and then they start hyperventilating, with the body cam and they're, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Nigga, what did you think this shit was going to do? What did you think them 40 cal spear gold dots were going to do? Oh my God, oh my God. What did you think they were going to do? What do you think they shoot out hugs and kisses? What do you think they were going to do? Like somebody said, and I love how graphic that analogy was, talking about the young boys down there in the South, talking about, with the Dracos and all that shit, saying, these young boys will have your head on the pavement looking like somebody smashed a watermelon. That's very graphic. And that's exactly what it's going to look like. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be able to accept, if you're going to challenge evil and you're going to fight evil, you have to be able to accept, not only what evil is capable, of doing, but you have to be willing to do what evil just did to evil. You have to be willing to do that. If you're not willing to do that, then maybe you shouldn't be the type to carry a firearm. Maybe you shouldn't be the type. I would like to think that, that if somebody puts you in a situation, life or death, that you would pick that firearm off the table and end them. You know what I mean? Or pull it out. You know what I mean? But that's gotta be in you. Again, personally, I like to have an intimate relationship with reality. Everybody wants to say, oh, I'm harsh and all this other shit, all this shit I've been accused of all over the years. Again, this is why. How can you tackle violence and the ugly reality of somebody who hates you this much? How can you tackle that if you're not willing to accept what you're actually dealing with and being confronted with? You have to accept that. And you have to be willing to respond and retaliate in the same fashion. Otherwise, they're the predator and you're just simply prey. Going back to, Jordan Peterson and his, a good man is not a man who is not dangerous. A good man is a man who is extremely dangerous but has it underneath voluntary control. And that was a well said quote. Even though I'm kind of paraphrasing, but more or less you get the point of the statement. I hear all this talk about black people that went out and bought more guns than anybody in the U.S. But how many of you all are carrying them? And again, like New York is just lackatopolis. You know what I'm saying? You just lacking in New York, the whole Northeast for that matter. You're just lacking. And a lot of these gun laws were created to keep guns out of the hands of niggas. That's what they were created for, with their vague description, because they couldn't say no black people need apply, no black people can have guns, no black people can have. No, they can't. They couldn't say that, because that's racist. That would have gone up to the Supreme Court and been smacked down. No, but if you look at the laws, they're tailored in such a vague fashion so that they can get away with it. The person must be of moral, prudent character, right? The person must be of good moral character. Right, the person must provide us with good cause. All these arbitrary terms that basically, so that white people could give the white police could give the guns to the people that they wanted to give them to, which are typically going to be other white people, and that they could deny black people on these arbitrary grounds. You must provide justifiable need. Right? This is all the shit that Clarence Thomas is about to address with this New York versus Brewing case, which is going to open up the whole aspect of concealed carry. And I saw the governor go up there and talk her stupid shit as though the problem here are people with CCWs, not the fact that we had a mass shooter. No. The problem here is we don't need more guns on the street. I'm like, there's already guns on the street. The problem is that the people that are being victimized and following the law are unable to defend themselves and protect themselves against, the criminals and the savages that are out here. That's what the problem is. But see how the Democratic Party likes to come in there and they like to conflate the shit all up and act like it's all the same thing and put the mass shooter and somebody who has a legal, valid concealed carry weapons permit. They try to put it all together and act like, somebody who went through the background check and the license and bought their gun legally is now all of a sudden going to be having rampages in a supermarket. Now all of a sudden they're the same thing as, this guy that shot the market. Get the fuck out of here. And black people, they fall for the okie doke every time. Yeah, that's right. We need to get guns off the street. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I have my biases because I just have a serious problem with inarticulate black people. You know what I'm saying? Not black people who can code switch and all that shit. No, I'm talking about the ones that just, they like, you can tell like they're kind of dumb and they can't articulate their words because they're kind of dumb. And then they just, how do I say it? They just, look at me, not articulating. But I'm saying they go up there and they just, like, the way that they think and the way that they process, it's like if you just put shit on repeat, eventually they will just repeat it. They're like repeaters. They'll be like, see, yeah, that's right. We got to get these guns off the street. And like black people are like moral show-offs. You ever notice that about black people? I've noticed that. They're moral show-offs. They like to say the things that are morally, like that their pastor would be happy of or something like that. They love to do that, right? But they're like children. They don't think for themselves, in terms of being like, hey, man, like, y'all can talk all that gun control shit. I'm going to have what the fuck I need. I live in a hostile environment. There's a lot of shit going on. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, right? It is what it is. But instead, you get these black people that go up there, you know what I mean? They're typically older, and they always just up there, skinning and grinning, acting like they're looking for a pat on the head because they're saying, what is the agenda for the Democratic Party? Black people need to get off of this serving the Democratic Party as opposed to serving their own interest as black people. I'm so sick of this, people conflating the Democratic agenda with the black agenda. Those are not the same things. And if black people have so much power to make or break the Democratic Party, they should be negotiating with us. When it comes to gun control, again, if we got too many white supremacists running around and they're not handling, the police ain't handling and everything, we should be able to tell the Democratic Party, if you want to get reelected, you need to stop talking about this gun control. This shit is off the table. You know what I'm saying? But again, we got all these old Negroes, sitting around, these pastors, these folks sitting up in church that'll have you out there with nothing but your ass telling you about how white Jesus saves, white Jesus protects. They just had a church in California. Motherfucker walked up in there and shot up the church. If Jesus can't even save you in his own house, what the fuck makes you think he's going to save you out here in these streets? Y'all need to wake up with your man. I don't know why black people are so goddamn magical. So it's just a primitive way of thinking. And I understand where some of it comes from, because, we don't have anything. And so we want to believe that the universe is good and that if we're good, the universe is going to reward us and take us away from all this nastiness that is white supremacy and being oppressed and everything else. And that being good, the universe will reward us. Well, I hate to break it to you. That ain't going to happen. How many more hundreds of years you got to sit around and wait for that shit to happen? Y'all niggas just gonna be sitting around waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Meanwhile, white folks and other groups are making moves, coming up with new technology, coming up with new ways of doing things. And you just sitting there with your black ass up in the church, waiting for God to give you deliverance, waiting for the world to end, thinking that God's going to take all the black people, save all the black people, and punish all the white people for all the evil shit that they did. Y'all sitting there praying to the same goddamn God. It's the stupidest shit in the world. You know what I mean? It's like what Cap says. We were talking about that shit earlier. The shit with he was talking about war. He's like, both of gods, the Bible says y'all ain't supposed to be having wars and fighting each other. And then not to mention the fact that here you got one man on the battlefield praying to white Jesus to get him through the war, but he's going to go out there and kill some people. And then you got the other guy on the other side of the battlefield praying to the same God for the same reason and the same purpose. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what the hell makes you think you're so goddamn special? What makes you think that you're so goddamn special? That white woman that got shot as soon as she got out, as soon as, went to work today, thinking all she was going to do is, I'm just going to work today at my shitty ass job at freaking Top Supermarket, and I'm just going to work today. You know what I mean? And she gets fucking gunned down, didn't even know what hit her. She just collapsed face first. Looked like a central nervous shot. Like y'all need to get off this. I'm special. This isn't going to happen to me. I'm special. You know what I'm saying? Got Aisha K. Faines. She's eating food, having an allergic reaction, and then stops breathing. Goes into anaphylactic shock. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter how much you think people are good and, whether you think that, they're great people and they're doing wonderful things, for the men, Kevin Samuels, right? Massive heart attack. Boom. He's done. You see what I'm saying? Y'all thinking because, if I walk around this chair 3 times, I'm good. The Lord's going to protect me. If I rub this lucky rabbit's foot and then spin around 6 times, I'm going to be protected and the Lord is going to save me. Y'all run around thinking this shit. People get fucked up every day. People get in car accidents every day. Just wild shit. Remember they had that woman who's, I think her whole family got into a car accident and everybody died and her husband died, all of her daughters died, and then she's the only one left. Think about how fucked up that is. She's the only one left. Everybody, she can't even say to herself, and when she dies, she can't even say, that, well, at least I have one child that's living on and I'm passing on whatever. No, her whole family died and she was the sole survivor. Some fucked up shit. You know what I mean? But y'all want to run around, oh, this person's special and that person's special. And as long as I got the sweet twinkle of Christ in my eye, as long as I keep Allah in my bosom, you know what I mean? I'm special and I'm going to be rewarded. That shit irritates the fuck out of me. Irritates the fuck out of me. You know what I'm saying? And on top of the fact that it's counterproductive to black people even working together. Because you got motherfuckers running around acting like because I'm a part of this church and I serve this pastor and I believe in this religion or this variation of the same goddamn religion, but I got the message right because, you know, I'm a Jehovah Witness or whatever. I'm going to be saved and fuck all the rest of y'all motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like, it's just bullshit to me. And I didn't even want this video to be a religious rant, but you know, it cripples our thinking. It clouds our judgment. You know what I mean? Black people, you know, motherfuckers tore shit up in 2020, you know, because of George Floyd. What y'all think? What you think that all that white supremacy just went away? All that hatred just went away? Nah, y'all niggas got comfortable. You got complacent. And this is what happens when you become complacent. You know, walking around, you know, just sleep and shit. You know what I'm saying? Black people need to make a religion out of not lacking. That's what they need to do. Again, the street niggas got it more accurate and more right than y'all got. They're more vigilant and more prepared than a lot of the other people in the black community, namely the women and the elders. You know, but y'all don't even know how to politically organize and vote in a manner that benefits you. You say, you know what? I'm sick of these New York laws. These white boys came in here and shot the fucking place up. I want to carry. Democrats, you're not getting our votes until you get off this gun control shit. Or actually, as a matter of fact, reverse all this gun control shit so that we can actually carry in the state of Buffalo. But guaranteed ain't gonna be no organization to do that. There's gonna be all type of organization to talk about more gun control that would be ineffective at stopping this man from doing what he did. Plain and simple. Name a gun law that would have stopped this man from doing what he did. There are no gun laws. Oh, we respect the second. No, they don't. What they want is they want an all-out ban. That's what they want. And the fact of the matter is they're not going to get an all-out ban. And if they tried to get an all-out ban, you think all them white people that got all the guns in the world, you think that they're going to give their shit up? Fuck no. It'll be January 6th all over again. They ain't giving up shit. They ain't giving up shit. So, you know, it's like, okay, guns are a part of America. It's a reality. And my opinion, you need more good people with guns out on the streets than bad people with guns out on the streets. Bad people do not give a fuck about what the goddamn laws are. All it equates to is you out there fucking lacking. That's all it equates to. You out there with nothing but, say it with me now, nothing but your ass. You out there with nothing but your ass. You know, I mean, I don't get it. You know, I used to say the same thing about all the black women that used to bitch about, and black women are violating and sexually assaulting, and it's because of toxic black male masculinity. And okay, well, why don't you carry a gun in your purse? That way, you know, you don't get attacked, preferably on your person. Why don't you protect yourself? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't get it. Okay, this, you know, black women are violated and they're accosted and they're robbed or whatever. Okay, protect yourself. I don't have any issue with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, Pete, but you advocating for black women to shoot black men. Sure am. Yup, sure am. Hey, what happened? Oh, man, she shot me. Oh, and what were you doing? Oh, man, I was trying to take her purse. Well, you shouldn't have been trying to take her purse then. What you want me to say? You know what I'm saying? You was looking for it and you found it. That's all there is to it. Plain and simple. But no. It's just, people just want to be like these, just victims and the government needs to do something. Police need to do something. I'm like the same police that 5 minutes ago we were running around screaming at the top of our lungs how racist they are and how much they don't care about black people. Why would they, especially now, why would they give a fuck about what's going on with you? You know what I mean? Everybody bitching about, oh, they arrested him, they didn't shoot him, and they didn't even put him in handcuffs, and he was comfortable. And yeah, the white officers arrested a white supremacist, right? And you're saying that they didn't treat him in some extra manner. And I'm like, but why would they, right? Like I'm saying, if you got issues with those police, yeah, but they should be doing their job and blah blah blah. Okay, that's not how the world works when you're dealing with people. But I don't hear any discussion of, you know what, we need to get more black people who are actually in positions of power, not just positions of showmanship, is what I call it. We want a police commissioner that actually hires more black police officers that relate to the community. You got all these white police officers policing your community, but white people wouldn't have a predominantly black police department policing a predominantly white community. They would never allow that shit to happen. But yet somehow when it comes to black people, we suddenly get policed by nothing but a whole bunch of white people and other groups. You know what I'm saying? That like there's name something that black people specifically seek politically that specifically benefits black people. Name something. Give me something. Give me three things. I'll just go with three. Because I'm sure somebody could come up with one. But just give me something. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always this vagueness when it comes to like what black people are going to get or what black people are going to receive. But you see the Asian community, bam, we want a hate crime bill, done. You know what I'm saying? We need, millions of dollars because of, to relief of COVID for our Asian businesses that have declined because of the COVID, pandemic and shit like that. Oh, done. Done. That woman in Queens, she got that shit for fucking Chinatown. Boom, done. Right? I think it was in Queens. She got that shit done. Oh, Ukraine, you need $30 billion. Joe Biden, done. Black people don't even know how to demand what the fuck they want. You know what I mean? They up there. Well, Joe Biden, as long as you don't say the N-word, everything's cool. As long as you don't go up there and say disparaging things about black people, it's cool. Because we couldn't stand that Donald Trump because he was just a flaming racist. But, okay, what about the specifics? What about the tangibles? This is old black people. Oh, well, I mean, see, you little niggas is asking for too much. You's asking for too much. And you know what that sounds like to us? For the boomers and the old black people, you know what that sounds like to us? That sounds like the same thing that you all were told when it came to integration and white people told you that you need to be patient and you need to wait because you all are moving too fast. This whole integration, desegregation thing, y'all moving too fast. Y'all need to wait. And I just the selfishness of old black people with their trying to get into the pearly gates of heaven and leaving nothing behind for their children. Nothing behind for their children. And then not only that, like supporting laws and shit because they have no control of their children and they're fearful of getting robbed in their own communities. So they set it up to where future generations of black people will be out here defenseless in a hostile state and country. In a hostile nation. We out here, again, say it with me now, with nothing but our ass. Shit just pisses me off. Just the lack of foresight, the lack of thinking, the lack of just any sort of vigilance. You know what I'm saying? Like most of the people who've been listening to me, when you saw this, were you surprised? If you've been listening to me for any good amount of time, were you surprised at this act? Were you at all surprised? I wasn't. You know what my first thought went to? My first thought went to, where were people carrying? But again, it's New York. They got those fucking goofy ass gun laws, goofy ass gun control, which is the primary reason why he targeted this location. I knew this shit like this was going to happen. I used to say that about Jersey. Because I was saying, because all you got to do is just put yourself in the mind of a mass shooter. It's like, I want to commit a mass shooting. Where should I commit a mass shooting? Should I commit a mass shooting in Pennsylvania? Let's say you were like in the tri-state area. You're like, should I commit a? Well, there's a lot of people who carry in Pennsylvania. Maybe that's not a good idea. But hey, New Jersey, they basically have an all-out ban, just like New York. So if I go to New Jersey, well, I know it's going to take the police officers a good 6, 7, 8 minutes to get there. And so in the meantime, I have free reign. I don't have to worry about any civilians carrying any guns because they don't have any, right? There is no CCW in the state of New Jersey. So, I have free reign. I'm already a freaking homicidal, suicidal maniac. So, hey, I can go and commit massive amounts of damage and then, I get what I want. Right? No opposition. Nobody wants opposition. Nobody wants ops. So, like I said, I really want to emphasize this point again. If you can't stomach, watching that video, if you can't deal with the carnage that's in that video, how can you advocate for the ability for more people to have weapons when you can't even stomach the carnage? That's going to be something that the gun control side will use, against you. Well, did you watch the video? No, I didn't watch the video. Well, they're going to attack you on that. So you're advocating, did you see the carnage that those guns unleashed on those people's bones and flesh? And you're advocating for more weapons like that to be in the hands of a civilian population, right? It always kills me whenever you see this shit with the guys and they got the AR-15s and they're notice how they'll tell you, right, as a civilian, they'll tell you, well, you need to have extensive training when it comes to the carrying of the carriage of a firearm, right? They tell you that you need all this training to carry a firearm and be effective. And I admit that shooting a handgun is much more difficult than shooting a rifle. The handgun does take a little bit more, training. But I'm saying the point I'm making is it's hilarious at how like liberals will tell you that you need all this massive training in the world, right? Right. But then when it comes to a mass shooter, the gun itself makes them a super lethal, ultra killing machine. Right? You notice that? So in other words, I need training to be able to defend myself, but a mass shooter doesn't need training to be a mass shooter. All of a sudden, the gun itself is like an evil talisman, like the knife in the freaking Golden Child that turns the person into a super lethal killing machine, where they're literally like an aimbot, right? But when it comes to defending yourself, well, you're going to need 60 hours of live fire training, right? All that shit. And that's another thing. The black people, the silly ass mindset when it comes to, protecting ourselves. I'm telling you what the Democrats are going to do if this law gets passed, right? Or the Supreme Court smacks down and says that, May issue is unconstitutional. New York's going to try to label every space a safe space. They're going to try to claim that you cannot bring your firearm, on public transportation. They're going to say that you need, 120 hours of live fire training before you can even qualify for applying for the permit. How much is that going to cost? The permit fees are going to go up through the roof because they know black people are poor and they really don't want black people having firearms. So all they got to do is increase the fees. And that's a way for them to economically discriminate against black people. But black people are so stupid and simple-minded, they won't see it. If they jump up there and they say, no guns for black people will be like, oh, that's racist. But if they go up there and they say, well, we're going to make the permit fees $1,000. Black people will be like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah, if you want a gun, because we don't like guns anyway, right? And then all the white people, they pay $1,000, they get their guns, and then black people be sitting there like, well, wait a minute. How come all the white people only have guns? $1,000 fee. Well, I can't afford that. I want to go. So you only wanted to go because now you see that the white people got it because they got the, again, due to the racism and everything else and all of the historical shit, the historical economic discrimination and marginalization. White people disproportionately are more able to pay those fees than you as a black person. So again, it's basically like a poll tax. You must pay fees in order to exercise this right. And we're going to keep the fee high enough to where it's out of the reach of most black people. Hell, don't even have to be a freaking $1,000. It could be $600. No, I'll go even lower than that. It could be $300, and black people will be feeling the sting of that because let's say you want to get your first gun, it'll be $300 for your first gun. Let's just say you go out there and you get a Ruger Security 9, that will be $300, and then you go and you got to go through the fee, the licensing process and the permit itself, that'll be $300, and then when you go to the range to get your live 120-hour training, you'll have to take off from work and all that other shit because you're not going to make it convenient. They'll be like, well, we don't operate on Sundays and the hours are only between 10 and 2. Like, and you're sitting there going, but that's when I work. I work between the hours of 10 and 2. Like, how are we supposed to do this? Well, looks like you're going to have to take a day off at work. And then you're sitting there and you're trying to divide 120 hours by 8 hours, right? Because you're like, well, maybe I'll just take a whole day off and knock this out. And then you got to do the math and you're like, well, how many weeks to months will it take me to where I get up to 120 hours? So let's see. That's 120 hours of live fire training. And if I take a whole day off and the maximum you can do is 8 hours, so divided by 8, so that's 15, right? So what's that? What would that be? 15 days. So you got 15, you have to go in there 15 times before you got to 120 hours for your training. And I'm just throwing 100, it could be 60 hours. Either let's say it was 60 hours of live fire training or some bullshit like that. It would take you just over a whole week and a day and a half for you to be properly trained on firearm. New York is going to make it ridiculous. They're going to make it stupid. And then they'll be like, oh, and you must renew and do this process all over again from the beginning every 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm telling you, it's going to be stupid because remember the SAFE Act, the Cuomo and the SAFE Act, they tried to reduce, you're already at 10 rounds, and that was too many rounds. And Cuomo went and tried to reduce it down to 7, and then the court was like, hold on, wait a minute, like, it's already bad enough you got it at 7. Now you're saying or 10. Now you're saying 7. Now I'm telling you, if it was up to New York, nobody would have anything but a 2-shot Derringer. That's what it would be. But black people, like I'm talking about the common black people. I'm not talking about the black militia and everything. We already know that y'all strapped up. We already know. But y'all don't live in places like New York. You don't live in places where the real fight for people to defend themselves is there. It goes even I think it was Kavanaugh said during his discussion or debate, at the preliminary, I don't know what you would call it, the damn, whatever, the hearing or whatever that they had about, this New York brewing case. And I think it was Kavanaugh, and he was like, yeah, but I'm saying who gets freaking, who gets robbed in the woods? You know what I'm saying? Most people are going to get robbed in an urban environment. So why wouldn't living in a high crime area essentially be the reason why you would justifiably need to have a firearm? You know what I'm saying? Like these are the sorts of things that black people in the Northeast are not prepared to tackle, or even black people out there, in California. Black people, and it also highlights just how much the lack of trust when it comes to young black men, there is in the community, in part because there are no economic, nothing was set up. So what do you need a gun for? What are you protecting? Right. And then this goes into the black family structure and the fact that, we don't have patriarchal homes like that. Right. Because you also need all of that. Right. See, these white boys, you can say what you want about. Notice the sense of what they feel that they're defending. But when it comes to us, that's not the case, right? What are we defending? What community are we protecting? You see? But anyway, I'm not going to make this video too I mean, it's already long as fuck, but I don't need to make it any longer. So anyway, that's my video. SWP out.